She leaves your message unanswered for hours, yet somehow remembers a tiny detail you mentioned weeks ago. That's the moment many men become confused, because attraction doesn't always appear as smiles, constant attention, or obvious affection. Sometimes it hides behind distance. Sometimes it wears the mask of self-control, and sometimes it even looks cold. Here's what most people never realize. When someone truly feels nothing for you, their behavior is usually simple. They respond naturally, without overthinking. They aren't trying to create distance or get closer. They're emotionally neutral, but when emotions become intense, everything changes. A woman who is deeply affected by someone may suddenly become more aware of every word she says, every text she sends, and every reaction she shows. Instead of moving closer, she may unexpectedly step back, not because the attraction disappeared, but because it suddenly became real. Think about it. Have you ever had an amazing conversation with someone? The chemistry felt undeniable. Eye contact lasted a little longer. The conversation flowed effortlessly. For a moment, it seemed like everything was falling into place. Then the next day, her replies became short, her energy changed. She seemed distant, almost as if the connection had never happened. Most men immediately assume they've done something wrong, but sometimes that's not what's happening at all. Strong emotions can make people protective. The moment someone realizes another person has the power to affect their emotional state, vulnerability appears, and vulnerability can be frightening, especially for someone who has spent years protecting their heart. That's why emotional conflict often creates mixed signals. She may pull away after getting close. She may seem detached after sharing a meaningful moment. She may take hours to answer your message, yet be one of the first people to notice your newest story. These contradictions aren't always proof of attraction. People act this way for many different reasons. But when genuine feelings exist, inner conflict often shows itself through inconsistent behavior. One moment she's warm, the next moment she's distant, not because she enjoys playing games, but because her emotions and her desire for control are pulling in opposite directions. Real attraction isn't always calm. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's confusing, and sometimes the person fighting those feelings the hardest is the one experiencing them the deepest. The signs often appear in moments most people overlook. Imagine you're standing in a group conversation. She barely acknowledges you. She seems focused on everyone else. Then another woman joins the discussion and suddenly her behavior changes. She starts paying closer attention to what you're saying. She interrupts more often. She becomes noticeably more engaged. That shift matters. Someone who is emotionally indifferent usually doesn't feel the need to compete for attention, but when emotions are involved, even small changes can trigger a reaction. You'll notice something similar when you stop giving her your full attention. Instead of constantly texting, you become busy with your own life. You stop chasing every conversation. That's often when unexpected things begin to happen. She suddenly reacts to your posts. She finds small reasons to start conversations. She sends a random message that doesn't really need an answer. Sometimes her tone even becomes playful or slightly sarcastic. To many men, these behaviors seem confusing, but emotional tension rarely expresses itself in a straight line. One of the biggest misunderstandings happens after a genuinely good interaction. You spend hours talking, the connection feels effortless, the chemistry is obvious. Then, almost overnight, she becomes distant. Her replies are shorter, her enthusiasm fades, everything feels different. Many men assume the attraction disappeared. In reality, there can be another explanation. Meaningful moments often make people feel emotionally exposed. Once someone realizes they're becoming attached, they also realize they can be hurt. That awareness naturally makes some people pull back, not because they want to lose the connection, but because they're trying to protect themselves from it. Another clue is how closely she notices things you never expected anyone to remember. She recalls your favorite coffee. She remembers a story you mentioned weeks ago. She notices when your mood changes before anyone else does. Maybe you casually mentioned you weren't sleeping well. Days later, without making it obvious, she asks how you've been feeling. People rarely keep track of details that mean nothing to them. Attention follows emotional importance. When someone consistently remembers the small things, it's often a sign that your presence occupies more space in their mind than they're willing to admit. Still, It's important to remember that none of these behaviors prove someone's feelings by themselves. People can seem distant, attentive, or inconsistent for many reasons. The clearest understanding comes from looking at consistent patterns over time, not from reading too much into a single text message or one unusual interaction.